everybody. So today I wanted to fill you in a little bit on what's been going on. So it's kind of funny because the last video I did about blessings among the chaos, I had made that video and I was going to post it the next day, and then the next day came and some craziness happened. And so I actually didn't even post it until after some of the craziness had died down. So basically right after I posted, or right after I made that video, the next day, the house that we've been staying in, our friend's house, the house that I'm back in right now, actually had a very small breaker panel fire. And basically the kids and I were in the house, and this house is a very, very old house, like older than 100 years old. And so it was, I noticed the power acting weird. I had the girls starting to shut everything off because I was full of laundry at the time, and I didn't really think anything of it. I thought maybe it was more like a power surge with the electric company or something. And so we turned stuff off, and then my husband came back after taking care of the animals, and checked the breaker panel, and he's like, hey, there had actually been a fire. And again, like I said, it's very small. Like, it was just like the back wall was a little bit burnt and some of the wiring was burnt. But obviously enough that there was a fire and there was like black inside the breaker panel. So one of those things, the first thing I thought was, praise Yah, we were safe. The house is safe. Like, nothing happened bad other than the fact that we had to now replace the entire breaker panel. And the house no longer had power. So it's kind of interesting because I had literally just made the video, talking about blessings among the chaos, and that our friend's house is one of those blessings. But then we had the breaker panel fire, and we weren't able to stay at our friend's house. So that night, it was almost like 8 o'clock at night by the point that we realized that there had been the fire. We were all basically going to bed anyway, so we're like, okay, so we went to bed. We ended up staying at a hotel for 2 nights, and then we actually ended up staying at some cabins at a lake. And so it was one of those things that was actually kind of nice. We were kind of like on vacation. And again, there were more blessings that happened throughout that process of us staying at a hotel, then staying at a lake, and everything else. Yah really blessed us with, honestly, extra financial help that we were not expecting. I sold some books, like my own personal books, and some other things happened that basically paid for the entire, we were at the cabins for about a week. Basically paid for our entire stay at the cabins, and then also paying for our gas and everything else. So it was again one of those things, blessings among the chaos. Our friends actually did come back home. They were out of town overseas. Well, they were out of town on a mission, and we got their electric fixed, and we're all back here now. And we're staying in one part of their house. They're staying in like their house area, and then obviously we're just all hanging out and everything else, which is fantastic because I mean our kids get along super great. They're some of our closest friends, so it works out. But I wanted to talk about this a little bit because it's funny, because I talked about in the last video the negative spiral, like spiraling down negativity and everything else. And the day we were leaving, I do believe, to go to the hotel, I got the kids loaded up, got all our stuff loaded up that we would need for the hotel, and maybe it was the cabin, I don't remember, it was one of the two moves. I basically got down on my knees and in our friend's house, in their living room, after I got the kids loaded up in the car and everything, and I was just crying. And I was super mad that day. Like, I was mad. Like, I haven't been really mad yet at Yah, but I was mad. And I said, Yah, I know you're working on something. Make me understand it. Because it's one of those things that is like, I wasn't like screaming at Yah, how could you, why, you're just this awful God and blah, blah, blah. I wasn't thinking that. I was thinking, I'm missing something. I am not understanding something. Yah is basically smacking me in the face over and over and over again, and yet I'm not seeing it. And so I got to this point where I was mad, I was angry, and I just like basically said to God, like, I need to understand. And I've shared a little bit about this on my Instagram and then also my personal Facebook page, but you'd see it mostly on my Instagram if you follow my Instagram page. It was one of those moments where, yeah, I had to get on my knees and ask God for understanding. And this is what I kind of wanted to talk about, because there's a few things that God has been working on me throughout the last few years of us being in Oklahoma. The first He worked on me is finding my worth. That is a whole other video. It's a whole other topic and everything else. But another thing that's always been big for me is having a home. And it doesn't have to be like a brick and mortar home, but having a place to stay. Because my husband and I, in the course of the 15 years we've been together, have moved a lot. And it seems like basically every year and a half we move. And sometimes by choice, sometimes because we have to, and everything else. So we have this time period of a year and a half and to 2 years basically that we end up having to move, which is ironic because we've been in our camper now a little over 2 years, and now we have to move again. But this time not by our choice. I mean, we were building our house already, but still, like, the 2-year mark. There's just something about 2-year mark for us. So I basically asked God, make me understand what the heck is going on. What are you trying to teach me? So that day I was mad, but you know what I did? I cried a little bit. I cried hard when I was praying, but I didn't want to cry like that in front of my kids, because I didn't want to scare them. I didn't want them to think that we were in this bad, scary situation, because we weren't. We still had a roof over our head. It was a different roof, but we still had a roof over our head. We had plenty of food. We were basically going on vacation. Like, our kids love staying in hotels. They love staying in cabins at lakes. Like, we literally just went on vacation. And so I did cry some in front of them in the vehicle, but it was very controlled, very, like, not overly emotional. It was just, tears coming down. My oldest asked me if I was okay, and I'm like, I'm a little upset right now. I'm like, but I will be okay. And I had us listening to worship music all day long until I got my head back in the right space, because I was mad. I didn't want to hear, the verse of the day that was very pertinent to our life. I didn't want to hear these songs about, God and stuff like that, because I was listening to Christian music. I didn't want to hear it, and I knew because I didn't want to hear it, that meant I absolutely had to hear it. And I think it was actually a song by Zach Williams. I think it's his new song that came out. Oh gosh, I can see the music video where they're in a hotel and like a motel and everything like that. But it's Zach Williams' new song that came out recently. That's the one that actually got me out of it. That's the one that made me think, and like, it's basically the one that finally, like, all the music I've been listening to all day long, it was that new Zach Williams song that got me out of it. And I love Zach Williams, like, as a singer. Like, I think he has fantastic songs. And a lot of his songs have spoken to me, so it makes sense that that song would speak to me. So I get out of it, and then I get back in a good mood. I get my head in a good spot, and I realize something. I realize that in the Bible, it talks a lot about idols and false idols. So not Yah, but people creating idols out of things. And like with Moses, when he went up on the mountain to get the commandments, he came back and the people of Israel had created a golden calf because they didn't have like the man of Yah to focus on. So they made something else. And it talks about this all over the place. So like in Revelations 2, the church of Ephesian church. Sorry, I'm trying to think of like the correct name, but it's the Ephesian church. Yeshua, Jesus, is basically getting after them for falling away from their first love, which is Him, and worshiping idols and worshiping, doing pagan practices and stuff like that. Now we don't do any of the pagan stuff, but I realized that I was making an idol out of our home that we were building, because having a solid structure and not solid structure, but like a structure I'm not moving from here to here to here to here to here kind of deal, is really big for me. So big that I was focusing on the house and the building of the house more than I was on Yah. That's wrong. Like, super wrong. You should never be focusing on something more than you are on focusing on Yah and your relationship with him. And so I realized, and it's funny, it's so funny because, golly, I love my husband to death. This man is so on point so many times. I mean, we have, typical marriage stuff. But, like, I kid you not, I snap out of my anger. I'm thanking Yah for, like, getting me through the emotional time and everything like that, and allowing me to, like, level-headedly teach my children how to manage emotions yet again, and everything else. And my husband texted me, and he said, do you think the reason we're going through all this, or you need to make sure that you're not making an idol out of the house? Because he knows my past. He knows that I just want a home. The times I've cried that and everything else. So he reminded me we need to make sure we're not making an idol out of the house, and that we're keeping our head where it belongs, focused on Yah. It's so funny because I texted him, I'm like, I already thought of that. Not that it was like a haha, I already thought of that, but it's like how, like, second witness, like, Yah cleared up my head. I realized, like, oh my gosh, this is probably the reason why we're being smacked in the face so much, is definitely me, and potentially my husband as well, has been focusing too much on this house build. We need to get this house built because then we'll be safe, then we'll be whatever. And for me, that's basically what it is. If we get this house built, we have 4 solid walls. We're not going to have all this mold issue. We're not going to have condensating walls in the wintertime that causes mold. Like, when it gets real cold, I'm not going to be as concerned about the cold because we'll have a wood-burning stove and blah, 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 blah. There was all this stuff that I was like, because of this house, this will happen. Because of this house, that will happen. And I realized it's none of that. So yes, this house is a blessing that we're building. Like, literally today, my husband's buying the walls and the windows to put them up. Like, I am so excited. But at the same time, our safety, our security, our ability to have a good, safe, functional life is not based off of whatever building we're in. I mean, Yah proved that by the fact that we were literally in a house when a fire started happening. But the fire went out when it was real small. So, again, Yah protecting us because we're in a stick home. Like, this house could have went up like the 4th of July. Like, well, it could have been real easy for it to just go poof, but it didn't. And that's the important thing, is that it didn't. And that's, I truly believe, because of Yah. Again, our protection, our safety, and everything else. And that's not what I was focusing on. I was focusing on our protection, safety, well-being, everything like that, being this solid house and not a camper. Because again, that has been something of mine that I've struggled with, living in a camper with weather that's, it's Oklahoma. And I'm not talking about like tornadoes. I respect tornadoes, but I don't live in fear of tornadoes. I'm talking more the hot, the cold, the wind, the rain, like the everyday stuff, because tornadoes are not an everyday thing. Regular weather is an everyday thing, and that concerns me more than the occasional thunderstorm that could become a tornado. So I realized I wasn't putting my safety in him. I was putting my safety in a house. I was making my house an idol, and that was wrong. And so that's something that I wanted to share, because I want you all to be mindful of that. And again, I don't know what trials you're going through. I don't know what's happening. And I'm not saying you're making an idol out of things, but think about it, because like, that's not something I normally would have thought of, that this was why this is happening. And I will tell you honestly that after I realized that, I didn't care anymore. It's like, okay, Yah, where do you want us? Where are you going to put us? Where are you going to send us? Like, what's going to be the next, wherever the next place is that you want us to go, like, we'll go there. And until we have our house built. And I look at that as a way for, he used that time to teach me, to help me grow. And again, this is something I'm teaching my children. Don't make an idol out of a thing. And don't think so highly of a thing that you're putting it above Yah. But I wanted to share that, but I actually do have to get going, because I don't know if you can hear or not, the baby's starting to fuss. He just woke up from his nap. So just want to share that with y'all. Praying for you all. If you're going through trials or struggles, sorry, my kid's walking next to me, shaking the whole floor. really pray on it, guys. Get on your knees and ask y'all, what do you want me to learn from this? What is it that you want me to understand? Because that's so important. But I just want to share that with you guys. Again, I'm praying for y'all, but I'm going to go take care of baby now. Hope y'all have a great day. Bye.